We have answered the question, I think, why the population goes along with the narrative, because there are all these psychological problems and they are solved by the mass summation. But the second question is, why does the elite do it?
Yes.
Another process happened at the level of the elite. This mechanist, rationalist view on the man, or view on man and the world, created a new elite. An elite which rationally tried to understand the psychological processes in a society, and then used this rational understanding to manipulate and control the population. And that's why, immediately after the French Revolution, that means after the fall of the Ancien Régime in France, immediately we saw the emergence of modern indoctrination and propaganda. Napoleon was the first one who established a Bureau d'Opinion Publique, a kind of office for propaganda. And then, in the beginning of the 20th century, like 100 years later, we saw already these enormous propaganda machineries of the First World War. And it became worse in the Second World War, and now it's even much more worse. Our entire public space is saturated with indoctrination propaganda constantly. Elite relied more and more on indoctrination, propaganda, manipulation, psychological operations, brainwashing, and so on of the population, just to manipulate the masses from behind.
To subvert democracy, to end the promise of democracy,
yes, of course,
which is the people will rule.
Of course. That's the problem. Yeah, exactly. So why do they do it? Well, why do they do it? You know, that question should be answered, I think, in a very nuanced way. Many people think that totalitarianism is all about power and that it's all about the money. And to a certain extent, that's true. But the ultimate motivation of totalitarian leaders is always ideological in nature.
Yes.
Believe me, it's ideological. Like
Stalin actually believed in Marxism.
Of course. And he wanted to sacrifice everything, all his money and all his power, if he could just reshape society according to his Marxist ideas. That's so typical for totalitarian leaders. They want to sacrifice everything.
And they actually believe it, though.
They usually don't believe the narratives they use, but they believe the ideology blindly. So, like in this case, I think here in our situation, for me, the ideology at work is a technocratic transhumanist ideology.
Yes.
And in order to impose this ideology to society, people use, the elite uses, the large global institution uses all kinds of narratives to try to entice the people to go along with this ideology. Really believe that their technocratic transhumanist ideology will create like a new paradise for the human being. But they usually don't believe the narratives they use.
Right.
They believe so blindly and fanatically in their ideology that they think it is justified to lie, cheat,